Before I started collecting watches seriously around 6 to 7 years ago, I always thought that Swiss-made watches are always superior over other watch manufacturers. Being a watch snob before, I saw Rolex, Omega, and other watches to be far better compared to Japanese watches. However, as I went along in my watch collecting journey, I found that to be the opposite at times. But today, as we review this magnificent IWC Schaffhausen Mark 16 Spitfire, I think it might have changed my viewpoint towards Swiss watches. As always, if you're new to the channel, please don't forget to click the subscribe button so you don't miss watch reviews like this one. Thank you. Okay, so bear with me here, because Swiss watches are not my strongest suit when it comes to talking about them. I have been blinded by mostly Japanese watches, and there's going to be a bias here. But I'll do my best to see this objectively for the sake of this review. Let me just share a brief history about IWC as a company. If you know this already, you may skip using the timestamps below. IWC, also known as International Watch Company, began in 1868 with American engineer Florentine Aristo-Jones, a watchmaker from Boston, Massachusetts. His goal was to produce high-quality pocket watches for the American market. During that time, he decided to leave the US and move to Switzerland for the purpose of having a much more affordable labor as compared to his hometown. He then met his business partner, Johann Heinrich Moser, a watchmaker in Schaffhausen. Johann invented a system in which they could use the current of the river, also known as hydropower, as their source of power to run the machinery needed. So they placed their manufacturing plant on the banks of the River Rhine. The company went bankrupt a few times due to import taxes when selling their watches in the US. Then, in 1880, Johannes Rauschenbach purchased the company and moved it into a better position to succeed. The history of the IWC is extremely deep, and if I were to go through it all, I would forget that I was reviewing a watch. So I just skipped to the part where they started making pilot watches. It started in 1936 when they released their first ever pilot's watch. It had a rotating bezel with an arrowhead index. It also was fitted with an anti-magnetic escapement. 4 years later, they released what we know now as the Big Pilot's Watch. Oh, and also along the way, they released the IWC Portuguese. I'm going to end the history of IWC there with the origins of the pilot watches because it is so detailed and massive on their website. I'll put a link on the description if you want to dive deep into it. Let's talk about this watch. And I have to say, I'm impressed. I borrowed this from my uncle, so shout out to him. I didn't really appreciate it when I first saw it because I always thought IWC watches to be big and bland watches. When I got it out in natural light, because when he loaned it to me it was nighttime, I was surprised at how good the dial looked. It's different compared to other IWC pilot watches, as the dial stands out in an odd way with the circle within a circle. It just works. The silver and white combination is so pleasing to the eyes. When I held it, did it really feel like a luxury watch? It honestly feels similar to my other watches that are non-Swiss made. But on the wrist, it just looks spectacular. The one thing I like about it is obviously how accurate it is, despite it not being COSC certified. So I believe it is a chronometer without a doubt, just not certified. Still, the price is not cheap. Anyway, the case size of this watch is 39 millimeters. The case thickness is at around 10.5, give or take. And it has a 20 millimeter lug width. I believe the lug to lug is at 48, which is a healthy size for this watch. It is a wearable watch and it sits nice on my 6.5 inch wrist. The finishing on this is brushed finish, which I actually like because polished cases show more obvious scratches as opposed to these ones. I really have the military heritage to it. The beautiful numerals, which are lume filled, look exquisite. I'm not bothered by the 10 cutting off right there, and also a tiny bit of the 11, if you can see there. I think I saw it in some watches and it is a unique touch in my opinion. The crown is big and it has a very nice grippy feeling to it. It is a screw down crown and the watch oddly has 60 meters of water resistance. I guess they were being specific about it. I think this is an excellent all-around watch, to be honest. The only thing holding it back is the strap. I really don't like leather straps, as when it gets wet from sweat or water, they will just deteriorate faster. Let me show you the case back real quick. It's a Flieger, an international watch company. So Flieger actually, it's a German word for aviation or pilot. There's also an IWC written on the buckle there, and also on the strap, as you've seen earlier. Yeah, so I believe the strap cost a lot on their website. It's around $400 US. It's just crazy amount. The movement on this watch is the ever reliable ETA 2892-A2. IWC calls it the caliber 30110. It has a date only window, and that's about it. It has a 42-hour power reserve, 21 jewels, and beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour. A smooth sweeping hand. Oh, I just love looking at that dial. Just gorgeous. This watch has been in production from 2006 to 2012, and that's a lot of time for it to sell. I'm assuming this model wasn't the fan favorite because it simply did not have that black dial that most pilot watches have. But I think it is a sleeper. You slap a bracelet on this and it can be worn underwater. It doesn't really blow me away that it might be better than the high-end Seiko watches, the Seiko SLAs for example. Their SLAs are better finished and priced lower. I'm comparing different things here, but maybe because this is my lack of seeing and experiencing more Swiss watches. Maybe someday my mind might change. But for now, I really think there's nothing wrong with looking into other watches. You can actually form a better decision when buying your next watch. But this one is a beauty, and I'm glad to be able to share it with you. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon. Stay safe.